This is episode 28 of Spiritual AF with Pixie Rose, the podcast for people going on their spiritual journey, knowing that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. Welcome to Spiritual AF. I'm Pixie Rose, and today on the podcast, I would like to introduce my amazing partner that you've all heard so much about, Hayden, to the podcast. So welcome, Hayden, to our very first episode of Sacred Conversations with the Divine Feminine and the Divine Masculine.
Feels good to be here. Finally be out in the open. Usually I'm behind the scenes listening to the podcast, but now I'm actually on it. So it feels good to be here to have this conversation with you all.
Yes, it's been a long time coming. We had this idea for this series when we first thought up of doing the podcast, and we really hope that it will be a series and we have more of these conversations. So please follow us on Instagram at Spiritual AF the podcast and let us know what you think. Let us know if you have any questions that you'd like us to go through, or anything that you want to understand more about this, about the Divine Feminine and the Divine Masculine. So first we'll go through how we came to the realization that the embodiment of the feminine and the masculine was something that we needed to focus on or learn more about.
Understand in our relationship. We knew that there was trouble and we couldn't quite put our finger on it for a long time on what the trouble was in our relationship or what was causing the turbulation. But now we've really dived deep and understood where this trouble has been, or would you call it trouble?
Well, I guess everyone has problems, don't they? No relationship is perfect. And we had this realization. I think it was me, coming to the realization that I was very much in my masculine. So through doing different women's circles and talking about the feminine, I came to this realization that I felt more comfortable in my masculine.
Yeah, and I guess for myself, I did feel there was no room for me to be stepping into my masculine. There was no space for me there. So I'm coming into this relationship expecting to be in my masculine, but I found that there was no space for me to grow.
And also you mentioned that you also felt really comfortable in your feminine rather than in your masculine.
Yeah, definitely.
If you want to talk a bit more about that.
Yeah, I guess as for myself, there's a whole stigma around toxic masculinity. And I know that for myself growing up, I didn't have interest in this toxic masculinity. I didn't enjoy sports, and when we'd go out with my parents, and they're really great people, and my dad's part of a football club, president at a football club. We'd go there every Saturday, and he'd be there with all his buddies, and they'd be talking all this toxic masculinity, and I had no interest in it. I'd actually rather spend my time sitting with my mum's friends and actually having deeper conversations about more meaningful topics that I actually cared about, instead of just, this football player's kicked this many goals this season. I go, I really don't care. It just glazed over me like I wasn't part of that conversation. So as I've grown up, I've really trying to understand why that was. And now as I'm taking this journey and understanding the divine masculine, which is completely different to this toxic masculinity, I'm really starting to step into that power of as the divine masculine. So yeah.
Yeah, and I guess for me, growing up, I definitely felt more comfortable with certain male friends rather than really feeling into that femininity and that sisterhood Like, I remember even having stories around that, feeling like I couldn't sustain a long-term relationship with my female friends in that feminine level. So I had male friends for 10, 12, 15 years and could barely hold a friendship with a female for a year. So I guess I definitely felt more comfortable in that, more in a masculine state, I would say. And even in relationships, I remember always resonating with the masculine side of things. And even recently at Christmas time, I remember doing some shopping and going into our local crystal shop, Dialogy, and Di said to me, "Are we putting you with the boys category?" And I'm like, "Yep, I am. I'm in that category." So, and also I also had this realization that being a single mum for my kids' whole life, even though, like, we'll get into how we met soon, but I did feel that as a single mum, I felt like I had to be in my masculine too. So we did found that throughout our relationship, we found these clashes and imbalance within the energy of our relationship. So now we'll share how we met.
So as every good love story starts, we met in the most 21st century way on the app called Tinder.
So obviously we both swiped right. And I was very particular. I don't know what Hayden was like with his right swipes, but I was very particular. And after my last relationship had ended, which was my marriage and the father of my children, I knew that I really wanted a spiritual partner. So somebody who was really open-minded and who I could have those deeper conversations with. So I definitely liked the look of Hayden and swiped right. And then it was probably one of the first questions that I asked was if you were spiritual.
Yeah.
And I remember your response was that you had ideas around the soul and, you know, what it meant to be a soul.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, yes. So we met out for a drink because at that point we were both still drinking. Whereas I don't know if I've shared that on the podcast, but we don't drink alcohol now at all. Not a drop for...
Nearly 2 years.
Yeah, nearly 2 years.
Which is really transformational in an experience.
Yeah, definitely have to do a whole podcast episode around that as well. But yeah, so we met. It was love at first sight for me.
Oh, yeah. Like, so we met at Spirit Bar, which is kind of ironic, I guess.
Oh, yeah, Spirit. Yeah, but anyway.
But I remember, because I arrived really early, and I remember sitting in my car, and I was like looking out the back. I was like maybe 10 minutes early. Then I see this taxi pull up, and I see this little pixie get out, little fairy get out, and run across the road. I was like, yep, that's definitely her. And then I just stroll in, and I just remember like laying eyes for the first time, and it was just like that spark and just that recognition.
Yeah, there was definitely a soul recognition and from a past life connection that we uncovered later on in time. And we started off, we took it really slow. Well, first of all, because I had young kids, I only ever had 4 hours away from them because I was breastfeeding my daughter. She was 6 months old when we met.
Yep.
So that was a different experience in itself. But we only ever got to spend 4 hours together for months, I'm sure.
It was usually Friday nights. We'd get pizza and spend some time together just chatting and really getting to know one another. For myself, like I came out of a 5-year relationship, and I'd only been single for 3-4 months before getting getting to meet lovely Pixie. So I myself, I knew that I wasn't ready to get into a deep relationship, but I knew that she was very important and very special to me. So I did want to cherish that and take the time to really build a beautiful relationship.
And I was definitely the same, because having young kids, I had seen relationships in the past, whether it was my, friendships and seeing their parents dating people, or, I found that it was not great for young kids to be exposed to different partners and to build these attachments to people, and then for it to not work out. So I did want to be really cautious around introducing people to my kids. And at first I virtually said that, the people that I was talking to on Tinder, I was like, you're not going to have anything to do with my kids. Like, it's like, this is about having fun and meeting new people, and for me to be living a life that's not just a mother. And for me to, find a connection with another adult really was what it was for me. But I definitely fell head over heels for Hayden very quickly, and more or less that idea went out the window in terms of, I was like, nah, he's okay to meet my kids. But even then, you didn't really properly meet them for a little while.
Like, I had a few run-ins with them to say. And yeah, that the few run-ins would always stick in my memories, because like Penny was so young, she would wake up, so there was always a kind of a timer on our nights when we were spending time together, and we'd know that about 11 o'clock that Penny would be awake, and that would be my time to kind of toddle off. But there's a few nights where she would wake up quite early at like 9:30 and just couldn't sleep. Whenever I was around, my energy was so intoxicating to her, and she'd just stay awake, and she'd just be like a little light bulb. And I remember this little potato coming out.
Yeah, I think it was actually the first time we had sex and it got completely interrupted by my children waking up. So that's a funny story.
Yes.
But as time progressed, we got more and more serious, and I think it was closer to the 2-year mark that you still hadn't slept over the night at my house, and I would spend time with you when I didn't have the kids. And then after about 2 years, because now we're going on 4, I think. How long have we been together for? Well, if Penny's 4 and she was, so we're nearly 4 years.
Yeah, wow.
That's crazy. But yeah, after 2 years, it definitely became a bit more serious, and I got to meet your parents, and we started spending more and more time together and started trying to work out how to create a life together. And there was definitely lots of different things in amongst that, but we did come up with obstacles, and there wasn't flow, and we couldn't work out what it was until I had this realization that I was in my masculine and you were in your feminine.
Yeah.
And that as a woman, I did want you to be in your masculine, but I was there, so there wasn't any room for you to be.
There's no room for me to come into my masculine. I had to naturally, because everybody's got masculine and feminine qualities. So for me, I just went back into a feminine state of being because there was no space for me to step up. And it is hard to step up into a relationship, especially if there are other children involved. It's hard to step up into that masculine role when that's been the case for so long.
Yeah, it was a tricky thing to break, and I guess that's what this episode in particular is directed to. It is especially single mums. If you are having obstacles or challenges trying to form that relationship, maybe do some reflection around, are you in the masculine? And is there any room for a masculine counterpart if that's what you're seeking? Because it's totally fine if you're a woman and you want to be the masculine, then that's fine. Then you need to understand that you'll get a feminine guy, and that's going to be the dynamic of your relationship. But I know that I wanted to be in my feminine, and for me to be in my feminine, I needed to have like trust and surrender that you would stand up and go into the masculine. So one thing that we did do to help deepen our connection was a tantric workshop.
That was beautiful. It was such an incredible experience, and really diving deeper into our beautiful connection that we do have, and really understanding our roles more, and creating more communication as well.
Yes.
It really helped us to really communicate with each other, because a big principle of tantric is communicating to each other what feels good, what doesn't feel good, if you want harder, softer, or whatever you're doing, and really get that clear, concise communication. So that really helped us. But as we were at the workshop...
Yeah, so at the beginning of the workshop, and I would like to bring Crystal. So it was Crystal, she's got, I think, the Inner Temple of the Goddess or something like that, or Reawakening the Goddess is her business. And I'm definitely going to make contact with her and see if she's interested in coming onto the podcast for an interview, because we learnt so much off her. But yeah, so at first we sat in a circle and she introduced us to some new ideas. We pulled some cards. I think they were goddess cards or something like that.
Yeah, god and goddess cards.
And Hayden pulled out a feminine card and I pulled out a masculine card. And we did mention to her that this was part of our thing, was that I'm more in my masculine and that Hayden was more in his feminine. So we learnt a few ways, a few things to deepen that connection and to go into those roles.
Definitely. One of the major things that we learnt was for me to stand into the masculine role was for the feminine to surrender and receive. So I could give to Pixie in our relationship as more as the masculine role, and she was able to actually receive that, my energy, the masculine, giving it to her, and for her to step back and receive it instead of pushing against me whenever I would try to give her that masculine energy.
Or also feeling the need to give back as well.
Yeah. Because
the feminine is about receiving and the masculine is about giving. And as you mentioned before, we definitely do have, I have naturally masculine and feminine within me. We all do, but yeah, it doesn't always work when you're in a relationship and two people are in your masculine. You're going to clash heads, you're going to butt. Yes.
And that's what we really learned, and that's what we were having that rockiness was. We were just clashing. I really wanted to step up, and I just felt that I couldn't. And there was no space, like I said. There was no space for me to step up and to support the feminine.
But one thing that we did learn in the tantric course was, I've mentioned it before, but the eye gazing is really powerful. So I guess this episode is around, if you are in a relationship and you're coming up with these challenges yourself, then if you're feeling called to, you can try a few of these things that we've found is helping our relationship. Because another thing that I want to mention is that we're not experts at this. Even planning this episode, I was totally in my masculine and Hayden was totally in his feminine.
Oh, let's just get on and do it.
Yeah, Hayden was like, I just want to get on and just flow, just like let it happen. And I'm like planning everything.
Yeah, that's truth.
And I'm like, how are we going to do an episode about, when I'm in my masculine right now and you're in your feminine.
Don't worry, guys. I did end up planning in the end.
Yeah.
But it was like I just want to get on and just do and flow and, there's still times, and we are learning, but it is just sharing the journey, because life is a journey, and it's about growing and expanding,
Yeah, definitely. So we did some eye gazing in the tantric course, and we also did some different ways to practice to give and receive. Also the breath work was really powerful. So while you're eye gazing, as one person breathes out, the other person breathes in, and there's this sort of conjoining within your connection.
It's like a wave.
Yeah.
And it's really beautiful energy. Like as you breathe in, the other person's breathing out. It's that exchange of energy and that prana around it. It's really, really beautiful.
So I do find that that's a really great way, especially moving into connecting intimately. That's a good way to, like, for me to get into that feminine space, is to take things really slow, and that sensuality that Tantra brings. So looking into Tantra has definitely helped us. We did want to talk a bit more about the toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
So there's this toxicity around the masculine, and then the feminine is completely oppressed. So within our society, especially within Western cultures, but I would say more or less this is a global issue, within this imbalance around the feminine and the masculine.
Yeah, so for a long time now, the masculine has been painted wrong. And it's time for us men to really step into that divine masculine and really supporting the feminine and really stepping into our roles and creating a new world, creating a new life. And it's time to make that change now.
Yes.
And as we move forward, there is more and more conversation about it. But we are moving into it, and we can't move into a new earth or a new world with this toxic masculinity. It's disgusting and it feels gross. I've never been able to step into that. I don't resonate with it. It doesn't feel good. But as we are moving forward, we need to shake it off and create this new masculine, which is going to be beautiful, and it's here to work as a team. Because the masculine and feminine are a team. They work together. The masculine isn't here to oppress the feminine. The masculine here is to raise the feminine and support her in the endeavours that she does. So
yeah, so it's so important, even if you're not in a relationship, it is so important to recognize what these roles are of the feminine and the masculine. So one thing that we have, you can probably hear the rain's really loud, and we're actually away in this beautiful cabin. So we've really gotten really lovely and connected this weekend in the new year, which is wonderful. We've set our intentions together, coming together as a team. So one thing that we have backwards within our society is that the feminine's role is to lead and the masculine's role is to support. And even we were having this conversation last night when we were coming up with these imbalance and these conflicts and obstacles again. And we were both like, how does the feminine do that? Because I know when I am in my feminine, I want you to take the lead in some way. And what we came to realize was that the masculine takes action, right?
yeah, so the feminine comes up with the what she wants to happen, or the idea, the vision, and the masculine's going to take that and make it happen.
That's right.
He's going to make the action. So the feminine wants to do something and like create a podcast. And then the masculine goes, right, this is what we need to do to create the podcast. We need to go get this. We need to do this. We need to buy this. And he'll make it happen.
Yeah.
He'll create that into a reality. So the masculine is there to support the feminine.
Because the feminine is the visionary. The feminine is the intuitive.
Yeah.
And this is why in ancient civilizations like Lemuria, the feminine were the leaders. And they were the ones that were making these intuitive choices. So the fact that all over the world, all of our global leaders or leaders of our countries are the masculine, that's completely imbalanced.
That's so wrong. We need the balance. We need the yin and the yang. And we don't have that in our society.
And not saying that the masculine can't be a leader or anything like that, because as we said, there is the feminine and the masculine within both of us, but the feminine's not even in there. Like, we have, it's all men, really.
So the toxic masculinity.
Exactly, that toxic masculinity is completely taken over.
We really need a shake-up of the systems of the world, basically, and have room for that feminine energy. You know, if there wasn't just one male in power with that toxic masculinity trait, and there was two people in power, of the feminine and the masculine.
Yes.
If the feminine has the ideas or the vision, and the masculine goes,
takes the action.
Yeah, takes the action. How different would the world be? It wouldn't just be this one-sided coin. It would be a two-sided coin, and would create a better life in a new world.
Yeah, definitely. So as a mother, it is important to feel supported. And this is another thing that we're really lacking, is that our mothers are not supported. The mother intuitively knows what is best for their children. And this is something that I didn't have in my previous relationship, and something that I was really craving. So I don't need, as a mother, I don't need someone telling me what I'm doing wrong. I will realize what I'm doing wrong. I just need my masculine counterpart to be there and support me, and support my choices, and just to love me. And I need that trust there. So it's so important, if and if you're masculine listening to this episode, this is what you need to do for your woman. This is why relationships fail, is even, I've done readings for people, and the male in the relationship is saying, she does this and I don't think it's good, and she does that. And it's like, if he just supported her, she would realize that it's not working.
Yeah.
But there's this butting heads. So that's what the masculine really needs to come to realize, that it's not the masculine's job to say what's wrong or right and to make these changes. The masculine really needs to come to this unconditional support. And within that, the feminine is going to be able to trust more and be able to let down her guard and receive openly and without fear, really.
Yeah, definitely. So just as we get an idea of what the divine feminine and the divine masculine qualities are, I've got some traits just so you do have an idea between the difference and how they do work with each other. So masculine qualities are logic, reason, action, firm, survival, loyal, adventurous, rational, and strength. Where the divine feminine qualities are intuition, nurturing, healing, gentle, expressive, wise, patient, emotional, and flexible. As you can see with those traits, it does create a harmonious living between the masculine and feminine.
Exactly. And this is a big point that we want to get across to especially the masculine, is it is not demasculating to be in your feminine. It is important for men to be in their feminine at times, because we as women want sensitive, emotional men that are connected. We want that. And then there's other times where we want our masculine counterpart to be taking action and to, especially intimately, we want that, like, to surrender and just be taken and to have this passion, and we want that as well. So I think that's what's been confusing, especially within spiritual relationships, is you do see the men really tuned into their feminine.
Yeah, tuned into the emotions, especially looking at all the practices that we do as a spiritual being. A lot of them are tapping into the emotions and feelings, and you naturally tend to go towards the feminine traits, and you are uncovering yourself deeper and deeper. But there are a lot of traits that are very masculine in spiritual practice.
Definitely. So recognizing when we need to be in our masculine and our feminine. So for me as a woman, I have, my soul modes, my cycles. There is different points in my cycle or different soul modes that I'm in where I am going to be naturally in my masculine. And so Hayden and I we've learnt to communicate. So when I'm in my super mode,
Yep.
Hayden knows to step back and just let me fill up that cup and let me, take the action that I need to take.
Soul modes is the best thing I could have learnt about. That helped me feel so much deeper and so much more connected in our relationship. I knew what mode she was in, so I could really understand her cycle and know where she is at in her cycle and what she needs me to do to help her. If I need to step up more, if she's in her bear mode, or if she's in her super mode, I knew that I need to step back and actually go into my feminine, which isn't bad. It's not bad to go into your feminine or to go into your masculine at times. It's good to have balance. So once I recognize that she's in her super mode, I know that I need to step back and let her take the lead. And it's good. It's good for me and it's good for her. And it really does create a better living. So super modes was the best thing I could have ever learned about. And it really has add an extra layer of depth into our connection. I feel like I know and understand my partner more. I know that where she's at in her cycle, and I can really feel where she is at. There's times where I know that she's in bear mode. She wants me there, but she doesn't want me to touch her. I let her come to me. I love it when Sparkle mode is by far my favourite. I love Sparkle. That's when she's in her feminine, all her hair's looking pretty and gorgeous, and you can see that real twinkle. I love Sparkle mode. And then Wild mode, I know that she needs that support.
Exactly.
She needs that support. If she's got crazy ideas, we're packing up the house, we're moving away. Oh my God. Just support. Yeah, we can do that.
I know. Yeah. And I loved the episode with Erin, how she was talking about soul modes and talking about that it can appear like your mental health is suffering a little bit. And that's definitely, so she mentions like bear mode. Bear mode for me is just, I'm a little bit grumpy, I think. I am like a bit of a grizzly bear. I look a bit cute and cuddly, but you don't want to come near me.
No, don't poke the bear. Warning, do not poke the bear.
And then in my wild mode, I get crazy eyes and I'm just like, you're going to have to quit your job. We're leaving the country. This shit's crazy. Like,
especially over like 2020, I was like, oh my God. There's some definitely wow moments.
But what I needed, because that mode would, it would cycle through, and then in my next mode, I'd be like, oh, actually, I don't think we need to move. Like, I got passports, but I think we're all good now. But what helped me in that mode was Hayden just supported me. He didn't say like, we can't do that. You can't make me quit my job.
That's a terrible idea.
He would just sort of be quiet and nod.
Know when to choose your battles.
Yeah, and he knew that it was just my wild mode showing up, and I just needed to make some dramatic change in our life to feel safe and secure, and having that support is so beneficial for me. To that's part of the cup that needs to be filled, I think, in wild mode. So really understanding each other's cycles, because men have cycles as well.
Oh, definitely.
And sometimes we do find that our cycles clash a little bit. Like Hayden will be really cuddly, you'll be really cuddly, and I'll just be like, no, I need to get stuff done. So
don't touch me. I'm busy. Can't you say I'm busy?
So just recognizing that you might be in different cycles within your relationship, and that's okay too, because I don't believe that couples should spend every second together or anything like that. I think it's important to be able to fill up our own cup as well as be there and support for our relationship. Another thing, so the last thing that we want to mention is one thing that has really, really made a dramatic impact in our relationship, and for me to embody the feminine and then for you to embody that masculine, is this Om meditation. So I discovered this Om meditation through the Melissa Ambrosini show, which I will link the exact episode in the show notes. And I listened to that episode and I sent it to Hayden.
Straight away.
And I was like, this sounds amazing.
Yeah.
And then you looked into it.
Yeah, as soon as I received that episode from her, I knew that it meant something and it was powerful. And I listened to the episode straight away. And I basically, as soon as I finished that episode or during that episode, I started Googling to understand more and to understand how I could actually learn to do on meditation, because I know that it creates more depth in your relationship.
So just getting clear, this Om meditation is not the Om mantra.
Nope.
So do you want to explain what it's all about?
So Om meditation is a non-sexual act, and what it is, it's basically, to describe it in a nutshell, would be for the feminine to surrender to the masculine. So the masculine sets up a lovely little nest, and it is
in the bed or on the floor or something like that.
It's a sacred, safe space. Obviously, if she's open to receiving an Om, will come in undressed from the waist down, and then lay
with your legs butterflied.
Yeah, with your legs butterflied, and the masculine will come beside and sit on a cushion next to her with one of his legs draping over her stomach, and the other leg down the side of one of her legs, and it goes for 15 minutes.
So you start the practice with complimenting the yoni, right?
Yeah. So you compliment the yoni, and you say to your partner or to your feminine counterpart what you really enjoy about the yoni, and you can go for shape, size, color, texture, whatever you're really drawn to in that session, and just taking that time to really notice. You notice what you really appreciate about your partner's yoni or your feminine's yoni. So on meditation, it's a practice of stroking the clitoris, and the practice goes for 15 minutes, like I said, and all it is just having a nice rhythm using your pointer finger and just taking your time to stroke the clitoris. Not too hard, not too soft. Just imagine stroking your eyelid. You don't want to stroke it too hard, as it will hurt your eye. And there's nothing sexual about the practice. It's just, to get into that meditative state. I find that when we do it, I feel so much more in depth and connected. Once the time goes, so for 15 minutes, you take the time and you really talk about your experience. So I'll talk about what I felt or what I experienced during the practice, and then
I will. So I'll share how the experience was for me, and I'll thank Hayden for that experience. So it's a spiritual practice. So this is not foreplay. So if you want to have sex afterwards, you need to have a cup of tea in between the practice because it's not used as a sexual way. It is about the masculine completely giving and not giving to receive.
Yeah.
It's not that tit for tat type thing, which is what a lot of our sexual experiences in not ours, but a lot of people's sexual experiences are, tit is that, I make you come and you make me come or whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas this is not that. It is a meditative, mindful experience. So what men describe is when they do this practice weekly or whatever, they, it's a meditation.
Yeah.
And they're more happier, they're more, because they're taking that time to do something completely mindful. And then for the feminine counterpart, it's a way for the feminine to completely surrender and receive without that feeling of needing to give afterwards.
Yeah, definitely.
So I just feel like this practice is so special, and it really has helped us to step into those roles. You know, I think that in the beginning, exploring the feminine and the masculine, it was a bit overwhelming and confusing. It's like, well, what am I supposed to do? Like, how am I supposed to behave, or how am I supposed to act? Whereas having that understanding that you have both traits within you, you have both feminine and masculine, they're going to come and go, and it's about understanding where each other are at. Because another thing we forgot to mention is when I'm not in my super mode, there are times where, you know, you'll want to do something, for example, cook me and the kids dinner or whatever, and you'll say to me, let me be in my masculine.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, oh yeah, okay. And I'll be able to step back and just...
It's really important to communicate. And for me, there are things that I do which makes me or helps me to feel more masculine. Like, I find that cooking a meal for my family and providing for my family is a very masculine trait. It's providing, where I guess society's put it as a feminine trait for so long. The female has to cook and clean, and where I don't feel that's correct. I feel more masculine when I'm cooking a beautiful meal for my family and providing them with food. Same with driving. I really enjoy driving, and I feel like I'm giving service to my feminine when I'm driving. There's times where Pixie will take the car keys and go jump in the driver's side and say, oh, can I drive? Like, I want to be in my masculine. And now I find that when I'm driving around, it's that, you know, caring for the family, and I'm stepping into that masculine role.
Yeah. So just noticing, you know, because it might be different for you. So because I guess I don't know if I don't think I feel masculine when I cook. I don't like cooking though. So
You got lucky you got someone who's a good cook.
I know. But just recognizing, you know, when you feel in your masculine, when do you feel in your feminine? And when you're feeling that imbalance, or there's a conflict, or, you know, there's not... So within your relationship, when you're butting heads, notice that maybe you're both trying to be in your masculine.
Especially with understanding cycles. And once supermode's over and I haven't stepped up into my masculine role yet, we could still be butting heads because I'd be in my feminine still. And it's really understanding the cycles and communicating what you need. I need this right now. Or having your partner understand these different traits that help you to get into your feminine or into your masculine.
I've enjoyed this so much. I can definitely see us doing this series. So potentially once a month or something like that. We'll see. Let us know. Please get in contact and let us know what you want us to explore. But I can really feel us being able to explore this more on the podcast.
Like, we're no experts, but it's just sharing what we've learnt so far and bringing you along for our journey. I know that we do have a long way to go, but as time goes on, we're understanding more and more, and we're just would love to share that with you all.
Definitely. So I wanted to give a special shout out to the Melissa Ambrosini show, which I've linked a few of her episodes in the show notes, because she's been such an inspiration for me, as well as her husband Nick Broadhurst. I know you were messaging him. He's such a great guy.
He's so beautiful, and he has a podcast, the Nick Broadhurst Show. And that really helped me to start to really step into my masculine traits. Yeah, I highly recommend the show. We're going to link it all in the show notes for you to listen to.
Yes, and I would love to manifest to bring them on this podcast and interview them around their relationship, because they're just such beautiful people. Absolutely love that. So remember to follow this podcast. We release new episodes every week.
Remember, you can always leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Leave a review for us. We'd love to hear from you.
And for more interdimensional conversations on all things life, death, and everything in between, remember, even if your wings have been clipped off, they can always regrow.